I've been looking forward to this day for a while. And I think most of it comes down to, like, I'm from Logan, from Cache Valley, grew up going to games in the Spectrum, and it, you know, all these great teams and great programs. And Utah State in general, but Utah State basketball just means so much to that little town, you know, to Cache Valley. And so to have Coach Danny Sprinkle in the house, you know, and come hear your story, I was just, you know, really looking forward to it. So excited to have you. So welcome.
No, I appreciate you having me. It's an honor. And like I said, it's an honor to be the coach at Utah State, you know, with the history and the tradition. And, you know, there's so many people like you that just grew up in Cache Valley where, I mean, Utah State, you know, basketball is their life.
It's the show in town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And has been for so long. My dad played on, like, back in the day, they had like a JV or like a junior squad, and he played there after he went to Logan High and played there. And my dad is so proud to be a part of Utah State, you know? And so I actually never went there. I am a true Aggie. You know, I checked that off the box when I was like 12, and then again when I was 14 and 15 and 17. But like, there's just something magical about Utah State. It's just that whole town, that whole experience. And your team has set the world on fire. Like the expectations, I don't want to like burst your bubble, but they weren't very high, you know, like you had a tough act to follow. And also, like, in the current, you know, 2024 environment with transfers and everything, it was just, you kind of started from scratch, from zero.
From the ground.
So we'll go all over the place, but talk to me from that. You get the job.
Yep.
There's not a stat returning.
No points, no rebounds, no assists. You know, really, you know, 2 kids that redshirted last year.
Has that ever happened ever in the history of basketball?
No, 2 times. And this year's the first 2 times. The coach at New Mexico State who took over, and myself. And now, but like I said, the landscape now, it's going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when a coach leaves, like
the players are loyal to the coach. Yeah. That's who recruited them.
Yep. And so it's going to happen more and more, but it's been fun, you know, and you mentioned Utah State. It's unique.
Yeah.
And like, there's a reason they call it Spectrum Magic. Like there is something magical about Cache Valley.
No one wants to play up at Utah State.
No, like, it's so hard to get games up there. You know, other than conference
I
games
would
have to
play.
come.
If I'm a like opposing coach, like, where's the upside in that? You're gonna go like hit a buzzsaw, you know, with everybody just on fire and like
the herd, the student section,
everything about it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So how do you go from there's not a stat in the lineup to right now, you guys, you know, when we're filming right now, 17-2, ranked top 20 in the country. Yep. Like, how do you go from that to where you're at right now?
Yeah, you know, we're very fortunate, you know, and when we got the job, it was scary, you know, and especially even after the first week, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Because some of the best players had already committed or signed other places. We didn't get the job till mid-April. And so
it was late.
Yeah, it was late. And, you know, after the Final Four. And so we just kind of started just recruiting one by one. And, you know, we had a couple kids. We had recruits on campus for about 45 straight days, if not longer than that.
Wow.
You know, sometimes 1, sometimes 2. We'd have one coach driving 2 recruits back to the airport, and we'd have 2 more coming in. And so it was grueling. I mean, it was 5:30 a.m. till midnight every day.
How do you even start? Do you just say, hey, like, it's a shotgun approach, or like, this is our top one? Like, how do you even start?
It was like speed dating, because you're hitting the portal, and first off, you have to have somebody that's interested in coming to Utah State.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a kid from Georgia or Florida, all over the world. And so we were just hitting the portal. We were calling every coach we knew, any kids that we'd previously recruited, like Josh Aduje, who's having a great year for us.
He's tearing it up, right?
Yeah, we recruited him to Montana State because we had an English connection. We had a lot of players from England at Montana State that had great experiences. And we tried to get Josh out of high school. He went to Coastal Carolina instead. And so that was our connection when he hit the portal. Getting great Osabar and Darius Brown.
So you already had that connection
with Josh.
Yeah, because there was already that relationship with
Josh.
Yeah, with Josh.
But that's about the only one. I shouldn't say that. We had two other kids that were committed to Montana State, Jackson Grant from University of Washington and Max Agbampalo, who, started on their Elite 8 team at USC, spent a year at Wyoming last year and transferred. And so we had already had those kids coming to Montana State, so they joined us.
Wow. And
then getting great Ospar and Darius, who have been absolutely tremendous players for us this year and kind of the leaders but we got lucky. They got offered a lot of money from other schools, and they came to Utah State.
Yeah, what do
basically out of relationship.
Yeah, what do you attribute that to?
Just kind of loyalty in the way we coached them.
Yeah.
I think they knew we cared about them, and I think they felt comfortable with us.
Yeah.
And I mean, they took
a risk.
Took a chance. Took a chance, and because they were coming into the unknown. Like they'd never been to Utah State. They'd been to Weber when we played Weber.
Yeah.
Other than that, those two, they'd never been to Utah.
Yeah.
And they were coming into a team where it's like, well, do I have any players around me? And we're like, oh, well, not yet, but hey, we're going to recruit them.
They just believed in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And
which fires me out.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
I don't know if there's like a more sincere compliment.
Yep.
Than like, hey, where you go, I go.
Yeah.
Like that's like pretty special.
And that's why you coach.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going to take over $100,000 pay cut from what other schools were offering.
Yeah.
Like that's that. And it means a lot to me. Like they know they mean a lot to me, but there'll be a day in the future too, where, I'm going to be able to tell them that, like, you took a chance on me, not just once, twice. You took a chance at Montana State, and then to follow me to Utah State and have that faith, when there was nothing to have faith in other than just our relationship. Yeah. And that means a lot.
No, that's special. I've had a number of these conversations around sport. Diljit Taylor, who's just a phenomenal leader and coach at BYU. She coaches the track team, one of the top teams in the country. But we're just having this conversation around athletics. Talk to me about just the magic of sport and the magic of athletics and like what it means to you, what it has meant, both as an athlete coming up and playing, and then also the ability to like have this as your career.
Yeah, like we're so fortunate and blessed to be able to coach and actually like have this be we're getting paid to coach young guys and show up on campus and travel in planes and go to these great environments and be able to compete. Like we're the most fortunate, not only the players, the coaches too. Like we're very fortunate, but I grew up in an athletic family. My dad was a football coach.
Okay.
He played football at University of Washington. And so I grew up on the field.
So that was just life.
Yeah.
Like you grew up being at your dad's
there was no
games.
babysitter. I was just on the football field or I was in the basketball court. And the coaches those were my babysitters. They all looked out for me.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't know anything different. Until you get older and you realize how fortunate you were to kind of grow up like that and to have those experiences. But there's nothing like sports. There's nothing like even, we lost at the pit at New Mexico last Tuesday. We had an opportunity to go play in front of 15,000 people that it was so loud you couldn't hear anything.
And played them tough.
Yeah. And every home game, we're able to play in front of the crowd at the Spectrum. Like how lucky are we? You know how many, first off, only about 1% of kids actually get to play college athletics.
For sure.
And about 0.002% get to play in front of a crowd like in front of the Spectrum.
If you would have asked me growing up, what I was going to do, I'm going pro.
Oh, yeah. We all were.
Like in my mind, you just have no perspective.
Yep.
But that's the dream, you just, you look at these and then you get to play the game and you get older. And I remember I got cut at UVU on the baseball team. And it crushed me.
Yeah.
Like I remember driving up the canyon just crying.
Oh, yeah.
I'm, 21 years old, just crying like a baby.
Because that's how invested you were in your dream.
It just means so much to you.
Yep.
And so like just the opportunity to play.
Mm-hmm.
Every kid who's playing, it was the best kid in his hometown or in his state.
No doubt.
Every kid. And then it boils up and, it's just so special. And the highs and the lows. I think without the lows,
Yeah, there are no highs. Like you don't even know what a high is until you go through the fire.
Really felt it. Yeah.
You got to go through that adversity, but that's what sport teaches so many life lessons. How to bounce back from failure. Even Major League Baseball players, if they hit 300, they're like an unbelievable hitter.
Of course.
I mean, 3 out of every 10 times. And that's success.
Yeah.
And so being able to bounce back if you get laid off from your job, if something happens to one of your kids, like all those things, like that's what sport teaches you is how to come back from that.
Talk to me about yourself. Talk to me about like, what's the high? Like when you were like a player, what's the highlight of like when you go back and say, this is as good as it gets?
Yeah. My freshman year at Montana State, we beat Weber State in the championship. And it was probably the best game I ever played. I ended up having 30 points and got MVP, but it led our school to the NCAA tournament. And, the school had only been there one time previous to that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's 9,000 people in the field house. Like it's bonkers, and I'm a freshman. I didn't even really know. I mean, I knew what happened, but it was like, oh, we're just going to do this next year too. But then you
didn't know that, like,
yeah, because
this is
you're 18
right
years
now.
old.
Yeah,
no
it's just perspective.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I expected to play good. You just kind of that arrogant, cocky
but
little
you
freshman.
lit it up.
Yeah, like that game. But it was, but then the more those seasons go on, all of a sudden you're a senior and you see like, man, how special was that? We actually, like, not many kids get to play in the NCAA tournament. Like you have to be on a special team to do that. And then I've been fortunate, I think, I went twice at Northridge as a coach, once at Fullerton, and then the last 2 years at Montana State.
To the tournament.
We went back to the NCAA tournament.
Which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's
so cool. So why? Why have you had the success that you've had? Different. So this is the job that I worked with. You would recruit people and you had to build cultures and build teams. So there was a point when I was 22, 23 where I just went on like this coaching binge.
Yep.
Studied everything I could study on coaching. And I remember like learning, about the good, the Nick Sabans and the Urban Meyers and the, Jim Harbaughs and the Pete Carrolls and, all these great coaches, the Bobby Knights, the Rick Pitino's, and you start seeing these philosophies. And we had Urban Meyer come out and speak to us. And this was, he had gone to, Bowling Green. And there's a story where he was sharing it with us. And he's like, I go to, Lou Holtz.
Yeah.
And I'm an assistant. And I say, hey, I got this offer from Bowling Green, but they're not a very good school. He's like, well, you're not a very good coach. You need to, you need to snatch that up. Like, this is and he goes and all of a sudden that school wins 8 to 10 games or something. And then he goes to Utah and they tear it up, and goes to Florida. They win a championship. And you see this like success that just follows. And you've seen that in your career. You saw that in California. You saw that in Montana. And you're like, what is that philosophy? Like when you say, hey, this is my philosophy of coaching, how would you boil that down?
Yeah. I mean, first thing I do the exact same thing you do. I mean, whether it's reading Urban Meyer's books or you're at conferences and picking people's brains. I love watching motivational stuff on YouTube of how Nick Saban, how they all interact with their players. Yeah. Just trying to find a way to get an edge. But the one thing I've always, not only my dad teach me this, but like even some of my other mentors, like you have to be yourself.
He's got to be.
You can't be Urban Meyer. He's built different than 99.99% of people. But then there's other coaches that are the complete opposite that are just as successful.
Yeah.
And so you have to be yourself, first thing. But then second thing, like I come from a football background, and so I love physicality. I love toughness. I love discipline.
Yeah.
And
is that how you played?
I don't, you know what's great? Not really. Like I coached almost totally different than how I played. I was more just running up and down and shooting and free flowing. And I was better at that. Yeah. And I was lucky I played for a coach who coached that way.
Who allowed that.
Yeah. But then once I started coaching, my mentality was different.
It was different.
And so Like that's just been the cornerstone of our program since I've been a head coach.
Physicality,
yeah,
defense,
and discipline. Like control what we can control.
Yeah,
like there's certain things that you can control. You've seen more teams beat themselves than teams win games.
Yeah,
and it's like, no, we're going to be disciplined. We'll try to go win the game, but if they beat themselves, great. Which a lot of teams they'll end up doing that.
Yeah,
and so. But I don't ever want to I don't want to come in the locker room and say, man, we beat ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, it is that kind of old school mentality, which some kids aren't built for it.
So give me some examples. What is that old school, how does that equate to?
Yeah. Like we challenge our guys in practice. Like we don't have soft practices. Like
you guys go hard.
Oh, in the summer, like we coach defense in the summer. A lot of teams are just coaching offense. And that's fine. Like it works for them too. But I want our guys to know that when it's the grimy part of the game and there's 2 minutes left, I want our guys to have confidence that we can get 3 stops in a row to win a game. Offense will take care of itself, but you're a better offensive team if you're not taking the ball out of the net and getting stopped.
Yeah.
And so, we try to, really get that into our guys' heads and
foundation
hearts.
Is defense.
Yes.
Start with defense and build off of that foundation.
Yep. And then a lot of player ownership. Like we'll challenge guys I'll make you take ownership. Some guys don't want it. Some guys just want to be in college and get the gear and play. Hey, coach, I played good this game and didn't know. Like you need to produce. And
but how do you do it? Like how do you do it in a way that's effective? Like when you're talking about these players that said, I can go make more money somewhere else and I'm going to go work or I'm going to go play with Coach Sprinkle. Like, obviously, like there's a difference between being a hard, a hard ass and like just driving.
Yeah.
And like somebody they're like, I know he loves me. I mean, he's hard, but I know he cares. Like, how do you weave that, thread that needle?
The second we walk off the floor, it's over. And some coaches can't, like, it's hard to turn off. I can turn that part off. Like, I could ride you all practice and 20 minutes later be joking around with you because they know they already
authentic.
Know
it's real.
And I think our players like they know we love them.
Yeah.
Even some of our guys at Utah State right now, they might not know because we've only had about 8 months with them.
Yeah.
But any player we ever had at Montana State,
they know.
I still stay in touch. Even the ones that transferred.
Yeah.
I still talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's genuine. Like they know I care about them.
Yeah.
And they know I'm following them. They know I'll still correct them if they're playing somewhere else. Like if I see them BSing on the court, I'll call them out.
Yeah.
Because my expectations for them are way higher than their expectations.
The other feedback that I've got from your coaching style is that you're really intense.
Yeah.
Like you care a lot. And not just, I was talking to Nick Elison and he was talking about the last game you guys were playing. And there was one particular scenario where it was a 3-point play.
Yep.
And you could have cared less about the 3-point play. Somebody had screwed up and you were not like, not going to let it go.
Because that's the standard.
Yeah.
Like and we talked about it in practice that week. There were certain players, I didn't want them getting shots in certain actions. And one of their kids got up 2 shots. And it was on our point guard who came from Montana State with us. But I have that relationship with
where
him.
you can go hard.
Yeah. And he knew we messed up.
Yeah.
But it's my job to hold you accountable to that too. And I know I have 13 other guys or 14, 15, 16 other guys on the bench and they know what we talked about and they're waiting for me to hold you accountable too.
And if you don't,
then your culture
anything goes. Yeah, it kills your culture. Yeah.
And that's the one thing that one of the best compliments I got is like, coach, you coach everybody the same. Like it doesn't matter if it's a manager or a walk on, it doesn't matter. Like if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I'm holding you accountable and I'm not apologizing for that because they respect that. Like they want to know coach expects me to be at my best today.
Yeah.
And even those days they don't want it, they still appreciate it and then they love it.
I think we all crave it.
We do.
Like
everybody does.
All of us, if you're lucky.
Yep.
You had a coach who believed in you more than you believed in yourself and held you to a higher standard than you maybe would have held yourself. Those are the people. I remember coming out of high school and I was like, I want to be a coach when I grow up because my coaches had influenced me so much. You know what I mean? They like, that was such an impactful couple of years in my life.
And it kind of breathes confidence into you. Because like,
it's the foundation.
Man, am I doing something? Like, he thinks I'm way better than I am.
Of course.
You know?
Yep.
But no, you have to, that's your job as a coach. You know, to push those
cool.
guys.
So let's go back to the beginning. So you grew up in
pretty much in Montana, in Billings until I was in second grade, then Helena, Montana.
Okay. And your dad coached football.
Yeah, coached football.
And how many years?
He coached pretty much all the way until I think I was in seventh grade.
Okay.
7th or 8th grade. He was the head coach at Helena High School. He coached a lot of places, but that was the last place.
Yeah.
And then he got a job at the Montana High School Association, where they would run the state basketball tournament or football championships and things like that. And he'd do a lot of stuff over to state. And so it was actually probably perfect timing. You know,
he was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, he was getting paid a teacher's salary and he got more money too. And so, you know, there was a lot of factors that went into it, but but still, those were the most impactful years up until I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just hanging on his coattails, you know, and it was probably better that right before I got into high school,
he's not your coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that dynamic can be hard too. Yeah. And so, but yeah, so I just, you know, grew up with that family and my mom.
Brothers and sisters?
I got 2 sisters.
Okay.
Yep. I got 2 sisters. And I mean, they're the biggest fans. You'll hear them in the Spectrum when they're able to come down.
Everybody's cheering for you.
Oh, yeah. They're my biggest supporters and always have been.
How cool is that?
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. So,
and you starred in high school. Like you stood out, right?
I mean, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, in Montana, you have to get a scholarship. Yeah.
And so lit up in high school, and then Montana State was it was the spot. Why stay local? Why stay home?
More, you know, a lot of people didn't know about me. You know, back then there was no internet. You know, I didn't get a play on the AAU circuit. I got hurt in track,
which is everything now. Like to get seen, you've got to be in that world. Yeah.
Yep. And so I got hurt in track my junior year. And so I wasn't able to do anything all summer, wasn't able to play football my senior year.
Wow.
And then finally, when they figured out what was wrong with my knee, they did surgery. And I missed the first month of basketball season.
Okay.
And then just played. But it's kind of one of those, everything works out for a reason. Like, even though it hurt not to play football,
it's probably better not to be playing.
Thank goodness, because who knows if I would have played in college. Like, it worked out perfect for me.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And really, you know, like the University of Montana, they didn't really recruit me.
Didn't even come.
Yeah. And, you know, really the only other school was Gonzaga that had recruited me.
It was big time school. Like Gonzaga's, you know.
And they weren't what they are now. Yeah. Like they were just on the verge of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And why Montana State over everywhere else? Was it just
the coaching staff? Like they recruited me the hardest.
Yeah.
They kind of gave me the most love. And
you felt like you could go there and contribute.
Yeah, because they had offered me my junior year.
Okay.
And so even when I got hurt and wasn't able to play, like they were like, "Hey, we still got the scholarship. Don't worry, we still want you. You know, we still want you." And you know, like years later, like the coach was like, "If you would have played AAU, we probably wouldn't have got you. You know, like if everybody else would have been able to see you." But it just that's how it works out, man. And it worked out perfect.
And started as a freshman.
Yep.
Like led, you know,
I wouldn't say I led. Like we had 4 really good seniors. That championship game, I was the highest scorer, but you know, I played with tremendous players like that. You know, one's the GM of the Dallas Mavericks right now, Nico Harrison.
Wow.
You know, we had a kid, Quadre Laws, who played 15 plus years at the highest level in Europe, was a tremendous player.
You had some players.
Oh yeah. I had other guys like great people, like great guys to learn under.
Yeah.
Especially as a freshman.
Yep.
Because they would hold me accountable.
Yeah.
You know, like if I had
to play as a freshman.
They made sure they humbled me. Oh yeah.
For sure.
And so, but we ended up playing Syracuse that year in the NCAA tournament in the pit at New Mexico.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome. It was one of those, I think we were down 2 at halftime and ended up losing by 30. But
but you were playing them tough.
Yeah, in the first half, you know, in the NCAA tournament, everybody's rooting for the underdog, so the place is going bonkers.
Everybody was loving it.
Yeah, and they shut that down in the second half. Yeah.
So go, you know, finish up your career at Montana, play for 4 years. When did
Montana State?
Or Montana State.
That's a big thing in the state of Montana.
I apologize. Yep. That's a big mistake on my end. when did you decide, hey, I'm going to coach?
Pretty much right after that. I knew I always wanted to coach because my dad was my idol, still is.
Yep.
But like I wanted to be like him. And I knew I'm not built to survive without athletics. Like I need to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
I need competition. Like that's what drives me every day. And like there's no way I couldn't sit in an off. I'd be the worst worker.
You'd hate it.
Or at a bank or something. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I knew that's ultimately what my passion was.
Yep.
And I got lucky at Cal State Northridge, Coach Bobby Braswell.
And so talk about that transition. Like how do you get that? And what's like the rung of the ladder that you're starting on it? Are you the bottom of the barrel?
Yeah, the very bottom.
Yeah, like grad assistant. Is it below grad assistant? Like what is?
It was grad assistant or director of operations back then, and he literally called me. I packed up my car and drove the next day to California. Just packed up my stuff. Didn't have a place to stay. They gave me a meal card with 16 meals a week, and they gave me a room at a place called NCR. It was the Northridge Campus Residency, and it was weed infested. Like, I mean, you name it. It was not the place you want to be living, but it was right across the street from the campus.
You're loving it.
Oh, so I ended up staying. One of my assistants now, Eric Brown, I went and stayed at his house 90% of the time and just slept on his couch.
Yeah.
And, but it was one of those years. It was the most impactful year of my coaching, even more than my first year as a head coach.
Why is that? Just you were learning so much?
Because, as a player, you're just playing. You're just showing up to practice. You're showing up to meals, eating, you're traveling. Like, everything's great. You don't realize the work that's being put in behind the scenes. And I'm doing everything from making sure everybody's pregame meal order. I'm taking that. I'm ordering all the gear. When the gear comes in, I'm counting the larges, XLs, doubles, making sure everybody has their socks. And like you're doing all the grunt work.
Yeah. But how important was that for you to do that work?
It was the most. I wouldn't be even close to the coach or where I'm at today without that.
You just had to have it.
Yep. And the details that Coach Braswell had, I had never had that.
Yeah.
Like he would hold up the practice plan in the light, and if the spaces were indented wrong, like he's letting you have it. Like that's how detail oriented he was. Yeah. It mattered. Oh, and so like now,
so he set the right tone.
Oh,
for you.
No question. He set the whole culture. Everything I even do today, for the most part, is him and Dedrick Taylor, who I learned under. But from the practice plan, organization, and how we run our program, it was all from that.
That's always been something that's been so fascinating to me when you go and look at like these coaching trees.
Oh yeah.
And you see these great coaches. Yep. And then they have like these trees of great coaches. Like when somebody gets it right, it's amazing how that just like affects like generations of coaches. I think about like the Bill Belichick's
or Saban, like people like that.
Yeah.
But it's still something like you still have to be yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have to be yourself. You have to take all those lessons and the organization and how to do things right.
But how do you make it?
It's still hard to do it every day.
Yeah.
Like even though something's right, but it still takes a lot of work to do it right every single day.
But do you think that standard of excellence was just like the difference maker for you?
Yeah,
because he just had like extremely high standards.
No question. And it was, every day you knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Like I would check that practice plan 30 times. I'd hold it up. I'd have a ruler because I was fearful that it wasn't right.
You weren't going to put yourself in a position to get embarrassed.
And you don't want to fail him.
Yeah.
Like he gave me my opportunity.
Yep.
Like I didn't want to let him down, whether it was watching film, anything, on the court, he'd be going through a scout. And if the screen was at the elbow, and I'll never forget, we're playing Nevada when I was at Northridge. And I'm going through the scout with the team, and I'm like, hey, and he goes and sets the screen over here. And he was like, the screen's right there? Or is it over there? And I'm like, no, it's right there. I didn't even know. Now, I'm going back and watching film. The screen was right on the elbow. I was about 2 feet off the elbow. That's how detailed he was.
Wow.
But it makes a big difference in place.
In space.
And so I'm going back and I'm on the bus watching like the film, and I'm like, oh God, it was exactly where he said it. And I should have known, like, because he was so intelligent and smart. Like before he asked that question, he knew the screen was on the elbow. That's why he was asking me.
Yeah.
And so
he's always testing you.
Yeah. But it makes you better because it keeps you on edge, and it makes you, when you're watching film, like you watch for those small details like that.
Yeah. And you were there how long?
I was with him for a total of 11 years.
Wow, so a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. big piece of your career.
Yeah, huge piece. And then at Fullerton for 6.
Yeah, if you could sum up 11 years, how would you sum it up? Like what would your summary of that time be? As far as one, how it impacted your career, and then 2, like how did your philosophy of coaching, how would you sum up 11 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I did the most, like I would just say learning and discipline, and probably self-growth. Those would probably be the 3 words. Discipline, because that's how he was every day. And I saw how he acted every day. It never changed. Whether
he
we
showed
won,
up
lost,
the same every day.
And it was like you never saw weakness in him, ever. Like not even vulnerability, really. Like you never saw weakness in Coach Braswell. And it was amazing, because now I look back at we didn't have any resources there, and the stuff that he had to go through to get there and to push that. But if he didn't have that discipline and push the program like that,
never would have.
There's no way. There's no way that program would have had success.
Yeah,
but like self-growth. Like I was young, like I was in the most influential part of my coaching career.
Yeah,
and he was part of that.
I think about leaders that I've had from like 21 to 31. It changed my life.
No question.
Fundamentally, like, changed my worldview, changed the way I thought about people and leadership and management and entrepreneurship. And those 8, like, you're just so moldable.
Yeah.
At that age.
It's almost like kind of the kindergarten, preschool, like up to 6th grade for a little kid. Like that's when you're
like
formed.
Professional daddy. You know what I mean? Like
no doubt.
They're showing you what it's like to go be a professional.
No question. And he held you to that standard.
What a
every
gift.
Day.
Like when you think so back, fortunate. You're just like,
because I could have gone this way instead of going where I've gone. Like, who knows? I could have been done coaching after a year or 2.
Yeah,
if you get put with the wrong guy,
wrong program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you went from there to Fullerton.
Yeah.
And what was it? Just time? Was it?
No. We our staff got let go at Northridge.
Okay.
They brought in a new AD and a new president, who quite honestly had no idea what they were doing. Like they didn't realize the impact and what Coach Braswell had done,
what he had done, and what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and they wanted to make a splash of their own guys, which a lot of ADs and presidents do.
Of course.
And, but Northridge hasn't been the same since, for the last 12 years or whatever. Yeah. And so, I was very fortunate. I knew, Dedrick Taylor, some just through kind of the same circle.
Yep.
But I was out of a job, for about a month and a half.
And that's kind of the life of a coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're
like
kinda,
they say, you haven't coached until you've been fired.
It's like 11 years is a long time. That's a long stay at one place,
Yep. And so was very fortunate, to get hired by him. And he had such not different views, like the discipline and detail, all that was the same with Dedrick. But like I really felt like I went to another level coaching with him from a standpoint of like, he let me be creative. Like he was just freedom. Like, like at Northridge, we had a system and like, this is what you're doing. And you coach it, you know it. And it was awesome. Like, and we had a ton of success with it.
Yeah.
And then I went almost to like the opposite side of it where it was like, well, if you see something, just run it, And so I was like, we may have never ran that play.
Yeah.
And he'd give me the freedom to run it at times. And
was that intimidating or did
no,
you?
No, it was empowering.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the best word for him. Like he
believed in you.
Yeah. And he always would talk about like he'd be like, no, I want you to think like a head coach. Like, don't be an assistant coach. Like when you're on the court, how are you running? Run it like a head coach. Have command like a head coach.
Wow.
And it made me think differently.
How special is that?
Yeah. Like it really, like I started thinking differently.
Yeah.
And not that it wasn't anything that I shouldn't have been doing at Northridge.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like he brought awareness to it.
Yeah.
And so it was tremendous there. Everything from, hey, if you're in charge of the equipment, you're the head coach of it. You put whatever you want on it, and let's go.
So he was very different than your previous coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that way. Yes.
Yeah. Very empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And Coach Brown, he was empowering in his own way too.
Yeah.
But I guess just more creative, with Diedrich probably.
Yep. You were there for how long?
6 years.
So 6 years. So again, like not another short stint. Like this is like real time paying your dues.
And I couldn't get another job.
Yeah.
Even at Northridge, I never got interviewed for a junior college job, a Division II job, another assistant job. I never got anything, like not a Mountain West, Pac-12, never got interviewed for an assistant job at that level. And I never really put myself out there.
Yeah.
Because I was happy working for those two.
You were happy.
But like, I'm still watching some of these other guys move up, and I'm like,
why are they getting their shot?
Like, what, Yeah. And I'm like, man, is this something I'm not doing?
Yeah.
Other than probably being too loyal to a fault sometimes.
Yeah.
Which if I'm going to go down, I'd rather do that. But and that's when Diedrich was like, no, you need to meet these search firms. And like he introduced me to that. So he was
pushing you to do it.
He was pushing me all the time. Great. And like he would call coaches that had openings about me, and I didn't even know about it. Like that's how special he was.
Wow.
Like there might be a job at just say Nebraska. He'd call Nebraska and be like, hey, I got a guy you should hire. And he wouldn't even tell me about it.
He was just always hyping you up.
Yeah. And you find out that stuff years later.
Yeah.
But it shows how unselfish he was, and like how he had my back, man. Like he was looking out for me.
Oh my gosh, that's the good stuff.
Yep.
That's special.
Yeah.
So what was the switch to like, hey, I'm going to go be a head coach?
I always knew I wanted to be a head coach.
Yeah.
It was just waiting for the right opportunity.
You were still at this point, you're still a young guy. You know what
I mean?
Like to go get a head coaching job. You were how old? 35?
No, I was 40 once up.
40 when you got the first job.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's going back home, right? It's
going
back to Montana
it was going
State.
Back home.
Yep.
That's the only job I could have got. I mean, to be honest, like nobody else was, like I said, I couldn't even get a Division II school to hire me. A JUCO, nobody interviewed me. And with the relationships I had at Montana State, being a former player there, and like we had just come off an NCAA tournament appearance at Fullerton.
Yeah, so you had some momentum.
Yeah, and it was just timing. Their coach, unfortunately got let go, and so it opened at the right time. And
probably at a space in your career where you were finally ready.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, any other time along
the way, you never know.
You probably weren't the right guy for that job.
Exactly. And so, like I say, man, everything works out for a reason. It was very fortunate.
It's interesting, like hearing your story and thinking about my personal career. I worked at Vivint, and it ended up being, 15 years.
Yeah.
And it was so much longer than I always saw myself as entrepreneurial. I always saw myself as I want to go, do my own thing. And I worked under like some really strong leaders for a long time, a lot longer than I thought I would. And looking back, I'm like, I couldn't have done the things that I'm doing without that time. Like it just, some things just take time to learn those lessons and to get those skills. You know what I mean? If you go premature, sometimes you get one shot to go make that first impression.
No doubt. And you better make the most of it.
Yeah.
And so, no, but kind of go like to your point, like I didn't grow up with anything. Like I didn't grow up with much money. Like we were fine, but I never, like my parents, they grew up with no money.
Yeah.
And so like that was never my motivation. And it's funny because I was telling Nick and Coach Fab on the way down here, like, and people, nobody sees it. 5 years ago, I'm an assistant at Cal State Fullerton, not making very much money. 5 years ago, living in a 1-bedroom apartment at La Casa Brea, which was the cheapest probably apartment in all of Orange County. And like, I didn't have, but I was happy.
Yeah.
But literally that's 5 years ago. It's not like, hey, that was 20 years ago.
Everybody sees like,
and everybody just sees,
today.
Oh, you're the head coach at Montana State. And then today, and it's like, okay, well, you didn't see the
those
other
dues
20
that were paid
years
for 20 years. Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't even think about it until we were driving. I was like, man, that was only 5 years ago. Like it feels forever ago.
Yeah.
But it's like that's why I'm not changing. You know, like it's who I am.
Yeah.
If I could still live I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know? But it makes it special, and it like kind of gratifying to know like, hey, I wasn't handed anything.
You earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Montana State, tell me about that experience coming home.
The best. The best.
Was it just natural from day one?
Yes.
It's just like, hey, I'm home.
Yep.
And you had to have that confidence from playing so well there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, you had succeeded in that program before.
Yep. And now there's pressure because like it was personal there. Like all the fans that were there, they were the fans at my game too. Like,
yeah,
I've known them. I'm from Montana. My parents know them. Like there's a personal relationship. And so like, I don't know how long I would have been able to make it there. Cause like I pushed myself literally every day.
You just were not, you were not going to fail.
No, there was no way.
Yeah.
There was 0% chance we were going to fail.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that arrogantly, but like I was going to make sure we were going to win a championship.
You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for me. Like it was for the fans, the community.
But you guys lit it up, right?
The AD and the president.
Like you guys, like when you were there, what, 5 years?
4
years. Over those 4 years, like what were the highlights of those 4 years?
You know, winning the last 2 NCAA tournaments, or the Big Sky Championships, and playing in the NCAA tournament. You know, my first year got canceled because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so there was no Big Sky tournament. The other 3 years we played for the championship every game. My second year we lost it to Eastern Washington, and then we won the last 2. But I think bringing the excitement back
home
to the field house, like, you know, the field house was rocking. It was packed again. Like people were excited to come back to basketball.
There's a lot
games.
of energy,
Tons of energy.
Yeah.
And so like that, I still take great amount of pride in that. It was still the hardest thing I ever had to do was leave there.
Yeah. Just because you love it so much.
Yeah. Like it's just like, it's who I am. And like sitting in that locker room telling my team, like that was the worst day of my life. And even after I'd taken the Utah State job, there was like 72 hours where I was flip flopping. Like I couldn't sleep.
Should I do this?
Yeah. Like I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Cause I felt like I was being,
you're letting them down.
Yeah. Or like unloyal. And it's like, and that's not the case.
Just the short time that, you know, we've spent together, 11 years with one coach is a long time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like 6 or 7 years with another coach is a long time.
Yep.
Your players following you. Like what I found is like loyal people breed loyal people. Like if you're loyal, people are loyal to you because they know that you're loyal to them.
Yep.
Your players following you, you know, like it just feels like that matters a lot to you. Like to be there for the people that were there for you.
No question.
It feels like that's like a core value or a core building block, you know.
No, it is. And it's like I tell guys when we recruit, like whether you play or not, like once you come here, like it's family, like it's for life.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had plenty of players that never played.
It's one thing to be lip service. It's something else to say like
to do it.
This is real.
You know, and it like just a quick story about that is we had a player at Northridge who I'd recruited there, and his mom passed away probably 2 years ago in St. Louis. And I flew there. I was at the service.
Wow.
I hadn't seen him for probably 10, 12 years, but it was like, no, like we had talked about this stuff. Like I owe this to him.
Yeah.
You know, like he needed somebody with him on that day, you know, and I felt like that was my responsibility.
Yeah. Utah State. So now like we kind of started there and come back there.
Yeah.
Like how has this experience been? You know, because you go from I'm the junior guy in the like I'm the most junior guy to like I'm a kind of a staple in the assistant coach role to I'm the guy at Montana State and we go build something really special to now it's like I got to go prove myself again. And people don't know this, but every player was gone.
Yeah.
So you were building it from scratch.
From scratch. You know, which is, it's almost like that's how God wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Like nothing's ever been easy. And it's like, no, go figure it out.
Yeah.
and I left a loaded situation where we were going to have our best team ever at Montana State.
You guys were brilliant.
Yeah, like it was like, crazy how much talent we had. But it was like, no, like I got to continue to grow, and
was that the main thing? Was just, I want to go see what's in here. I want to go take it as big as I can take it. I want to go, like, this is my profession. I'm going to go
be
as
another
professional
challenge
as I could be. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the Mountain West.
Because it would have been comfortable.
I could have stayed there forever.
Yeah.
I could have stayed there forever.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part but I also, like you said, it can't be lip service.
Yeah.
If I'm telling my players, like, you got to get out of your comfort zone, I had to get out of my comfort zone. And like I said, it's a lot harder when you're looking yourself in the mirror trying to do that.
But you're saying, like, it's funny that you're saying this, but you're saying, like, hey, I couldn't last at Montana State because I was working too. But you're working the exact same way.
Well, no, I am. I am. But it was like, and it doesn't stop, but it was almost like, it was so personal.
Yeah.
Like every day, like I would just come home exhausted.
But you don't feel it's that same way now?
No, I mean, I do. It's like different because I'm not more comfortable, but I'm more like
seasoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized, like, okay, like, have some perspective here. Where when I was at Montana, there was no perspective.
And you also know, like, what works. I think it's trusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust in the system, trust in the philosophy. Like you've seen it work so many times.
Yep.
And it'd be so fascinating to go back to that first coach and to say, one, what did you take from him? But two, what's uniquely different? Because I think that's the magic, is that creativity of saying, I'm going to go take the best from everybody I learned, but also that authenticity of, I'm going to make it mine. Like I just have to do it my way.
Yep. No, I think it's crazy because, like, I'm both of the coaches that I worked for. And I know it's going to sound like I have the discipline, the kind of the
gritty,
of like not having anything.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing at Fullerton. We didn't have a ton of resources there either now. And then, but also having the awareness and the creativity while still having that discipline that we had at Fullerton.
Yeah.
And, and expanding, like realizing, okay, it's basketball, but it is the search firms. It is the agents. It's all the other stuff that entails it too. Where it was almost like at Northern, you were just fighting for your own, like you were almost, you had to beat Cal State Northridge before you could actually go beat Pacific. Like you had to win some internal battles.
It was just hard.
Just within the athletic department, just to get to the court.
Yeah.
And so, those two, like having that gritty, like always have a chip on your shoulder, both those guys have it.
Yeah.
And, and I've always had it, and I've just kind of taken both of them
but it's got to be so fun, like coming from a small town.
Yeah.
Not being the blue collar, to have like that chip on your shoulder. Like, we're going to outwork everybody. We're going to get scrappier than everybody. Like, we're going to, I don't know. Like I have that feeling through life. I'm from a small town. I dropped out of college.
Yeah.
Like, I never feel like I've made it. It's like, I got out.
Even when you win a championship,
I got to outwork
next?
Everybody, you know.
And even when you, like, I almost became hungrier after we won the first championship at Montana State.
Because you tasted it.
Yeah. And it was like, we have to get back here. Like, I don't care what it takes. We're getting back here.
Just because you loved it so much.
Yeah.
And it was so satisfying.
And it was almost kind of like your personal pride. You're like, well, we can't have a bad year now. Like, we've already set the standard.
We've established the standard.
Now, if I don't do this, it's going to be like, what did he not do?
Yeah, I think that's, that's always been, when I look at coaches and I look at successful programs, it's like people.
It's almost fear.
But people who succeed, they just succeed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like these programs that win, they just always win. There's this standard of excellence, and there's kind of this standard of winning.
Yeah.
Where it's just, this is what we do. We
winners win.
Yeah. So talk to me about what's next. When you say, hey, this is the vision for what I want to go do with Utah State. These are the type of players that are going to, go come build with us. This is what we want to go build at this program. Like, what's your vision of that program?
Yeah. I mean, my vision is obviously getting the NCAA tournaments and winning games. I think it's a program you can do that. The Mountain West is such a good league. It's like, that's my ultimate vision.
I mean,
like,
it's a great league.
It's
there's
tremendous.
NBA talent every year coming out of that. Yeah, coming out of that
it's
league
ranked ahead
year.
of the ACC, the Pac-12, all those this year.
Wow,
we have, I think,
that
6.
good.
Yeah, we have, I think, 6 teams in the top 35 of the
That's
net.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's
because you got Colorado State, you got New Mexico,
Boise,
you got San
New Mexico,
Diego, Boise,
UNLV's really Nevada,
wow.
And even like Wyoming's really good. Air Force is always a nightmare to play.
Yeah, they're tough.
Yeah. And San Jose State's, they won 20 some games the last 2 years. So no, it's brutal. And but that's, like I said, that's what you sign up for. But my vision is, from a player standpoint, like, you have to get Utah kids. Utah kids they're good enough to win games in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. They just are. And they've proven that. That's why Utah State's been really good. Utah, BYU.
They've got those kids. Yep.
Utah Tech, Weber, like Southern Utah, they all have really good Utah kids. And the best teams usually have that core of Utah kids that have that pride in the state.
Yep.
And it permeates through your entire team. And so we have to continue to get really good high school kids from Utah, or transfers, that are kids from Utah.
Yeah.
And then you gotta patch it up around them, and like I said, there's no way to say how we're going to do it nowadays with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You don't even know who's going to be in the portal until March.
It happens. Yeah.
And then it's a 3-week, like I said, speed dating. And you got to get in quick, and you got to be able to get them on campus and try to get them signed.
So this NIL world is so fascinating to me. I've got one of my good buddies that literally was caught up in like this investigation with the NCAA for years.
Yeah.
Over Nick Emery and like buying him like a lunch at like it was so ridiculous. And now it's just like the rules are completely out the window. And so
there are no rules.
Yeah. It's like you're creating them as you go. Logan and Cache Valley specifically, there's some very wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that love Utah State. How does somebody help? Like if I love Utah State,
yep,
and I'm not as close to it and don't know how the game has changed, talk to me like, how is this game evolving and this NCAA world evolving? And if I wanted to help, how could I help the most? Talk to me about how that works.
Yeah, we have a collective that Eric Lobb and Coach Gary Anderson started.
Yep.
In September probably. So we're behind, but like they've done an unbelievable job. Like they took control of it, and they're true Aggies. And so like that's what I love about it is they don't ask for a dime. Like they're just doing this out of goodwill and trying to help us.
Okay.
But it's called the Blue A Collective, and you can go to you can Google the Blue A Collective, or there's always stuff around campus at the athletics where we can get you information. They can email me, my staff directly, and we can put them in touch with who they need to be in touch with.
But it's a unique animal, right? Because you can't like fully get involved with it. It's like it's this unique thing where it's got to be between the players and
it's a separate entity than the university and myself.
Entity. But if somebody just said, "Hey, I love Utah State and I want to, help the program have the resources to one, retain their best players, and then two, bring in the talent that we need to go grow." Is that connecting with Gary and connecting with Eric?
With Eric Lobb, yes. Connecting with, exactly. And like I said, if they Google the Blue A Collective, they'll have the numbers on there where they can reach those two.
Yeah.
Because if we want to keep competing for Mountain West championships, we have to up the ante.
It just has to happen.
Yeah, we're at the bottom of the Mountain West when you're talking about collectives.
Yeah.
And we're losing recruits.
Which is kind of embarrassing. Like me being from Logan,
especially as important as it is.
No, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just like, we can do better. You know what I mean?
We can.
And I'm not a Utah.
And we will.
I'm not a Utah State guy. Like I grew up there, but I moved down to Utah County, right after my mission. I've been down there since. But the pride of that valley for that program, like people love that.
Awesome.
My dad,
it's awesome.
He loves that program.
there's not many fan bases in the entire country like ours. The student section, like the care factor was one of the reasons I took the job.
Yeah.
Like the care factor and the spectrum, it is. But now, like you said, it's a totally different landscape in college basketball. And they're used to success. And for us to sustain that success.
But I also think it's so fun for fans because like you can actually help.
You
know what I mean?
winning.
Like in the past, it's like you get in trouble for helping. Now it's the opposite. Now it's saying like, hey, you can actually like help the program. You can step in and you can influence the outcome. And I think for anybody who really cares, that's like an exciting time.
No question.
And it'll be fun to see kind of who takes the lead on that and who says like, hey, what are the other best programs in the country doing?
Yeah.
What are those who are those early adopters that have figured this thing out, that have figured out the game's changed and are getting in front of it? And how could we do that? And I think that's the one where, I know the people that are kind of thinking about it and we're no Gary, no Eric, Nick and Coach Fav and those guys. It's going to be fun to see, who steps up and who actually like, what it turns into, because it will, make something where,
it'll steamroll. Like once people start doing
that momentum,
it like I said, it directly affects winning. For the first time ever, you can directly affect winning.
Yeah.
Because you get the best players.
Yeah.
And now you have to pay for them. You just do. And like you said, I'm expecting, Aggie Nation to really step up because how important it is and the care factor, and like they want to win as much as anybody. Yep. And I think the way they've supported our team this year and they see the way our guys act in the community.
Yeah.
And even if they're not getting, like, our guys are going to be in the community regardless.
I mean, everybody's so proud of that team right now. I'm not a Utah State guy, and I'm proud of that team.
Yeah, thank you.
And I am proud of you. Anytime you have like people that come in and embrace that culture and care, and all of us want to be a part of something that's great.
Yeah.
And you guys are building something that's really great. That's making everybody proud. And so, anyway, I just want to give you props on that.
Thank you.
Before we finish up, this is one that always intrigues me. And you're in Utah is like, predominant faith.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about God. Talk to me a little bit about faith in your life and how faith has impacted your journey.
Yeah.
And how you how that fits in the whole picture.
Yeah. I mean, I have a huge picture at my house it's like a bighorn sheep like jumping from cliff to cliff.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, it's just words faith. And I've had it since college. My mom got it for me. But, I grew up, in a Catholic church, and I split between Catholic church and Christian churches.
Yeah.
Now it's hard to, it sounds bad. I have time, but like I do a lot just at my house, just, watching stuff online. But that's always been the backbone of everything I've done. It was the backbone of making the decision to go from Montana State to here, like having faith in myself, having faith that, hey, my trust is in you. Let's go, and, I feel bad for people that don't have that background, who don't have kind of that higher power to lean on in those tough times. And, but it's all of, what I've done and what I'm going to continue to do.
I love, hearing people's stories on those decisions, those key decision points.
Oh, because I'm telling you, I was on my knees.
And how that factors,
Yeah.
And sometimes, you're on your knees just to say thank you.
Yeah.
But there's other times where you're on your knees for some help.
Oh, hey, I need help way more than I'm saying thanks. I know that, because it's, like I said, when I made that decision, I'm glad they didn't have surveillance cameras in my house. Like, literally, I would just be on my knees, like,
you just tore up,
bawling, like literally just slamming the floor. Like, I didn't know what to do.
Just because you love
and I was just waiting for an answer, what to do.
Well, brother, I've loved this combo. We're so proud of what you've created in such a short time. You know that everybody's cheering for you and everybody's, excited about you, and we're excited to help wherever we can help. And so anyway, just know, we're all super lucky to have you as the coach.
I appreciate
anytime there's a coaching change, programs either get better or get worse. And it's fun to see that program as good as we've ever seen it.
Thank you.
And it's a big compliment to you and your staff and all the players who, signed up. And anyway, so thanks for one, being excellent. And two, loving that university and bringing that standard that, all of us can get behind and cheer for. So,
no, well, I appreciate you having me on, man. It was an honor. And it's always great to get down here. Thank you.
Sounds good, Coach. We'll see you.
Thank you.